Welcome one and all to my list of the top 10 worst movies of 2016. And for those of you who are new to my channel, you're probably wondering, why am I doing the worst first? Don't you normally do the best list first? Well, the first reason why is because 2016 was kind of a bad year. And the second reason why I do a top 10 worst list first is because, well, I think it's kind of a tradition for me. It's a kind of tradition I do for my channel when I put the worst first and the second last. And even though 2016 has its bright spots, this year had way more ball busters than there were blockbusters. Featuring some of the most unnecessary sequels, remakes, cash grabs, CGI slogs, failed adaptations, you name it, this year had it. Be forewarned folks, this list is gonna have some big names on there. Also, there are some movies that I didn't give a 0 out of 5 to, but the more I thought about it, the more my opinion changed and I started to hate it even more. So in the words of Jesse the Body Ventura from Predator, it's payback time. My name is Luke Nukem, and these are the top 10 worst films of 2016. Was this released in theaters? Yes. Was this released in DVD and Blu-ray? Yes. Should it have been? Absolutely not. Starting off with number 10, Batman the Killing Joke. This film that is based on the well-known comic book made by Alan Moore and Brian Boland basically betrays everything that the original source material stood for. With its pandering writing and animation so low budget, you'd think you're watching a mature episode of Batman the Animated Series, which to be fair is what should have happened. And this movie tops it off by showcasing the worst 30 minutes on screen, only to completely dehumanize and ruin one of the most prominent characters in the DC universe, Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl. What a complete waste this was. Hey, United Kingdom? UK? London? Are you sure you want to put this in theaters? Are you absolutely sure you want to put in London Has Fallen in theaters? Talk about unnecessary sequels already. Not only was this film offensively irresponsible, it makes the UK look like the biggest idiots on the planet, when in fact London has the highest security and terrorist watch ever. The action scenes are bloated, the special effects are garbage, the characters are unlikable, with a plot point that actually kind of justifies the terrorists. Hoping to God we don't get another one of these. Disappointments can be killer, especially if you waited 20 long years for it. Yeah, Independence Day Resurgence is not only a sequel that I was disappointed by, but a film I dreaded completely. From the trailers, I was completely hooked, hoping that it would have the same fun and charm and quotable lines. But when I saw the movie, all my hopes and dreams were just completely gone. Independence Day Resurgence is not only a bad film in light of its pedigree, it's an objectively tremendous misfire that sidetracks itself from everything the original Independence Day was, with performances from the original that were completely phoned in, and all the new actors they hired are completely terrible, uninspiring action sequences, complete overuse of CGI, and a sequel-baited ending that made me just roll my ever-loving eyes. I just wanted a good time with this movie, an adventure that would take me back to my childhood self. But now, the only thing I wanted after this movie was my money back. Coming in at number 7 is one of those movies that I rated higher than a 0, but then the more I thought about it, the more I hated it even more. Yeah, this is one of those times. Suicide Squad is the exact definition of a disaster on screen. Basically, what DC did is that they saw Guardians of the Galaxy, and they said, hey, let's make a movie like that, but 10,000 times more incoherent and lazy. And as a result, you get this movie right here. The plot is a frustrating mess, you have characters you don't care about, with backstories that are completely cliched and cookie cutter. The editing is all over the place, the dialogue is filled with nothing but horrible puns and one-liners. The action scenes are completely mundane and generic. The final act is a complete train wreck. The soundtrack is one of the most crowbarred and forced-in soundtracks I've ever heard this year, and Jared Leto is perhaps the worst Joker ever put on film. I mean, it would have been nice if we had an adaptation of Batman Assault on Arkham, but no, we get this. And no, the extended cut's not gonna make things better either. Ben Stiller made a cult classic that, to be honest, I didn't care for. I thought it was overhyped by my friends and schoolmates, and I thought the movie was just meh. I didn't hate it, I just didn't care for it. However, I absolutely hated Zoolander 2. Precisely as soon as the credits rolled, I was at a loss for words to where to even begin. Not in a vitriolic way, but more in a confused and astonished way. If you were to ask me what the movie was about, I wouldn't have any idea. This is one of the most random and scattershot storylines I've ever seen. The comedy is just completely sloppy and random, and it's not even funny random. Oh, and let's not forget about the endless barrage of meaningless cameos that show up in the movie for no reason whatsoever. Please, don't watch this movie. Don't watch this movie if you're a Zoolander fan. Just ignore it and let it be a permanent stain on Ben Stiller's filmography as one of the worst sequels ever made. Just show it. There. This movie is perhaps one of, if not the worst animated film I've ever seen in my life. The animation is some of the worst I've ever seen. The characters are either unlikable, obnoxious, useless, insulting, and irritating. The acting is completely cartoonish and over the top. And the humor has some of the most appalling jokes and puns I've ever seen in a kid's movie. The worst part of the movie is the plot. It's nothing but a bombardment of multitudinous plot threads just being stacked on top of each other that exists only to add more stuff to the plot for no reason whatsoever. And I'm not gonna give it a pass or let it be an honorable mention just because it was a straight-to-DVD movie that came out in theaters. This movie didn't need to be brought to theaters. It didn't even need to be straight to DVD. It just needed to not exist. Okay, if you are a director or a producer and you have hired one of the most talented and famous actors working today to be in your next movie, what would you do? Do you put him in a very entertaining blockbuster that might increase his popularity? Do you put him in an Oscar-worthy movie that might win him and your film a lot of awards? Or do you put them in a very insultingly unbearable comedy? Like Dirty Grandpa. Why on earth is Robert De Niro alongside Zac Efron in a heinous, lamentable movie like this? Filled with obnoxious jokes, unlikable characters, a chemistry that is not existent between Robert De Niro and Zac Efron, and a film topped with insufferable gross-out humor, Dirty Grandpa will be regarded as one of the worst movies in Robert De Niro's career and one of the most humiliating roles he has ever done in his entire life. We all hate remakes, mostly remakes of what we loved in our childhood. I mean, at some points in life, you would get an excellent remake every now and then, but then you would wind up with a movie like 2016's reboot/remake, Ghostbusters. Unlike what it should have done, which is expand upon the story of the original first two Ghostbusters movies, with the newer set of actors, including ones of the original which could have possibly made a funny movie, we get a lifeless, uncreative, made-by-committee train wreck with one-dimensional characters, a script that's all over the place, and jokes that were just completely made up on the fly. The reason this movie exists is to make money, because Sony is so desperate for an expanded universe/franchise at this point, because, you know, it worked with Spider-Man, right? Well, thank God it bombed. And folks, let this be a reminder to never remake original 80s classics again. Remember when I said how detrimental Dirty Grandpa was? Well, the Brothers Grimsby is like that, but 10 times worse. Look, I think Sacha Baron Cohen is a funny guy. I think he can make funny movies. But unfortunately, that's not the case with Brothers Grimsby. A movie with some of the most repulsive and cringeworthy gross-out gags I've seen in 2016. One of them in particular involves a herd of elephants, forced jokes, and irritating characters. This film was so horrible, it made me lose part of my brain cells. Had it gone over 2 hours, I would have lost them all. To be honest, I wouldn't have made this video if it weren't for this film right here. A movie so repugnantly loathsome that after the movie was done, as I walked to my house, I pulled out my 3D glasses, threw them on the concrete sidewalk, and as soon as I got home, I burnt my ticket on fire. And before you ask, yeah, that actually happened. The number one, without question, the worst film of the year is none other than the catastrophic disaster known as Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Was there horrible movies this year? Heck yeah, there were. But none of them enraged me, none of them insulted me, none of them hurt me on a personal level like this one did. And before you throw in the whole, oh, you're just a Marvel fanboy comment, let me just get something out of the way. First of all, no, I'm not. Second of all, I just love good movies. There are good movies from Marvel and, wait for it, there are good movies from DC! Heck, one of my favorite superhero movies of all time is The Dark Knight, with my personal favorite being Watchmen, a film also made by Zack Snyder. So don't tell me that I'm a Marvel fanboy just because I hate something that you like. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. The point is, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is a fantastic, monumental failure on every conceivable level of filmmaking. The direction is discordant, shoddy, and unfocused. The script is a manipulative, pandering mess. The action scenes are bloated and boring. The actors are completely adrift. The characters are completely unlikable and inconsistent. The Justice League stuff, including Batman's dream sequences, are completely hackneyed and unnecessary, and they serve only to be trailers for the next 4 movies. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is the worst comic book movie villain of all time. Affleck's Batman is horribly directed as he plays a sociopathic reprobate. Henry Cavill proves himself yet again to be the worst on-screen Superman by many miles. And I forgot to mention this character in my review of the movie, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. Yeah, Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman in this movie, and she's awful. What really killed this movie was Doomsday ruining the 3rd act. Why the heck do you even need Doomsday? Why? But what really killed me was the title fight between Batman versus Superman that is just tedious and sluggish, and the resolution of the fight might be one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in my life. This was the movie that made me give up on Zack Snyder entirely. This was the movie that made me give up on the DC Cinematic Universe. And this was the movie that earned its rightful place as the worst film of 2016. So there you guys have it, the top 10 worst films of 2016. But thankfully, I will return with the video of the top 10 best films of 2016. So get ready, you guys. This list is gonna be awesome. My name is Luke Nukem, and you have been blown away